Okay, we are still working through the book of Genesis, through the life of Jacob currently. You remember that Jacob has swindled his brother and he's running from his brother. Today he's going to meet his brother after many years and find out if his brother Esau is still mad. And so listen to this telling of the story of Jacob wrestling the angel, or his demons, or God, or his own self, who knows. This is in Genesis 32, 22 to 31. Genesis 32, 22. The same night Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 maids, and his 11 children, and crossed the river Jabbok. He took them and sent them across the stream, and likewise everything that he had, and Jacob was left alone. And a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he struck him on the hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. Then he said to Jacob, "Let me go, for the day is breaking." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." So he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." Then the man said, "You shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with humans, and have prevailed." Then Jacob asked him, "Please tell me your name." But he said, "Why is it that you ask my name?" And there he blessed him. So Jacob called that place Peniel, saying, "For I have seen God face to face, yet my life is preserved." The sun rose upon him, and he passed Peniel, limping because of his hip. And the part of the story we're not reading is where he rushes to meet his brother, and his brother welcomes him with open arms. Our New Testament reading today is taken from the Gospel according to Matthew. This is the only miracle of Jesus that appears in all 4 Gospels. This is the feeding of the 5,000. As we read it, ask yourself, why is this the one that even made it into John? What's going on here that's so significant at the feeding of the 5,000? Matthew 14, chapter 14, verse 13. Matthew 14, 13 to 21. Now when Jesus heard this, he withdrew from there in a boat to a deserted place by himself. But when the crowds heard it, they followed him on foot from the towns. When he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion on them and cured their sick. When it was evening, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a deserted place, and the hour is now late. Send the crowds away, so that they may go into the villages and buy food for themselves." Then Jesus said to them, "They need not go away. You give them something to eat." They replied, "We have nothing here but 5 loaves and 2 fish." And he said, "Bring them here to me." Then he ordered the crowds to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and, listen to the verbs here because they're significant. He blessed and broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples. And the disciples gave them to the crowds. And all ate and were filled. And they took up all that was left over of the broken pieces, 12 baskets full. And those who ate were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. Holy wisdom, holy word. Thanks be to God. Who did Jacob wrestle with in this story? It says a man, but it's kind of an angel. Later it'll say Jacob wrestled with God. Was Jacob wrestling with himself? With his own stuff? Jacob wrestled the angel. Jacob wrestled with God. Jacob wrestled with his own worst demons. Jacob wrestled. Sometimes love has to fight us to be found, doesn't it? Sometimes we've got our own agendas, and we need someone to come and wrestle with us. But I tell you, And perhaps you already know, if you've ever spent a dark night wrestling, or a dark season wrestling with an angel or with God or with your own worst demons, then just like Jacob, you will come away from that night strangely blessed and walking with a limp. Walking with a limp ever after. Surely you've discovered that the wisest and the kindest and the gentlest and the most valiant and the most generous and the strongest people are those who have been broken. And from their brokenness, strange blessings have emerged. I mean, pick a favorite writer. Pick a favorite musician. Pick a favorite artist. Pick a favorite entertainer, a lot of them as well, because they're artists too. Pick a favorite theologian. Do you have one? Some of you do. Or philosopher. Dig into that person's story. Read a good biography about that person, and you will find that their brokenness and their blessing are all mixed up in each other. They're all mixed together. I mean, Mozart, he had that famously tyrannical father, right? And Benjamin Franklin was a dropout, and Albert Einstein didn't even speak until he was 4. We all know about Vincent van Gogh and his struggles with mental illness. Did you know that Audrey Hepburn was in a terrible blockade that nearly starved her to death as a child during World War II in the Netherlands? Nobody took Marie Curie seriously. She was a woman, she was a Pole, she was an immigrant in the field of science. Harriet Tubman escaped brutal enslavement, and then she turned around and helped others to do the same. Interesting how her brokenness and her blessing to the world were all tangled up together. And the list of broken luminaries is nearly endless. I've told you the story before of my favorite theologian, Paul Tillich. I'm going to tell it again. You know, it's hard to believe that there was a time in this country when seminary professors could make the cover of Time magazine. But Paul Tillich actually did, as did 2 others, Karl Barth and Reinhold Niebuhr. All 3 of them guiding lights, the likes of which we have not seen on the cover of any magazine for many years. And yet, Tillich's life was full of tragedies from the very beginning. His father was one of those very cold, distant Lutheran ministers, not to impugn Lutheran ministers. But come on, Presbyterians are way more easygoing, right? He was always moving the family around in an attempt to advance his career. And so a young Tillich made very few friends. He was sent away to a boarding school where he endured all the classical humiliations of a European private school: loneliness, bullying, bad food. He had no friends, and he did the most dangerous thing of all. He sat alone in his room and read his Bible. Tillich's little sister died when he was 12, and then when he was 17, his mother died. He got ordained just in time to be sent as a chaplain to the trenches of World War I. So far, things are not adding up well for Tillich. And there in the trenches, he saw the mustard gas and the gangrene and the insanity of that crazy, ridiculous war. And after Germany's humiliating defeat, he came home to his wife to discover that she had a baby, though he hadn't seen her in 3 years. It's not working out well for him. He became a prominent university professor. But when he started speaking out against Nazism, he was fired. He fled to New York with his new family, and there he lectured at Union Theological Seminary, and he watched from afar as his homeland went up in flames, along with some people he loved. One of Tillich's biographers writes that he used to go to the Jersey Shore every summer, but he never got in the water. All he did was sit in the sand and stare at the ocean with tears coursing down his face. And nobody knows what he was thinking about, but the ocean will do that to you, won't it? He just sat there. You could say that he walked with a limp. Life had broken him in some big ways. And yet, if you've ever read anything he's written, whether it's the really hard academic stuff, which I gave up on Lent 2 years ago, my Lenten discipline was to read his systematic theology. It did not work. Or whether you read his more popular stuff, wherever you just read his sermons, you find in them a joy and a courage and a strength that you find in few other theologians. He actually preaches pretty well for a theologian, and he does it without stories or anecdotes or jokes. And when I get there, I will have arrived. He holds your attention without making you laugh, because he's speaking about the real stuff of life, the stuff we all deal with, the stuff we all know. For Tillich especially, God is not a being out there. God is the ground of all being. God is all possibility and hope. And so all of life happens within the larger life of God, and our living participates in God's life. That's where I got that idea. I think it's beautiful. I find it inspiring. There's a beauty in his thought, but that beauty is all mixed up with the brokenness of this world, with the sadness that he endured, with everything that he had been through. His broken-hearted wisdom and abiding hope inspired a whole generation of pastors and religious thinkers, including Frederick Buechner, if you've ever heard of him, who was one of his students at Union Seminary. Paul Tillich's story illustrates, for me, my frequent claim to you, which is that faith is all about resurrection. That is the narrative around which we gather, the story that the worst thing is never the last thing, that our brokenness doesn't get the last word. Faith puts down its deepest roots in the human life that has been taken by the holy, blessed, broken by sorrow, and given as bread for the life of the world. Just like the bread at communion, and just like the fish and the bread in this miracle of Jesus that we have just read from Matthew. Is it any wonder that most people of genuine faith go through life with a little bit of a limp? Most of them are a little bit broken. Okay, so they tell you in seminary, never preach from 2 scripture texts at once. It's good advice. I'm not going to follow it. Not today. I see too much overlap between these 2 texts of the broken Jacob making good, and of the way Jesus breaks not only the bread at communion, but the fish in feeding the world, feeding the 5,000, the one miracle of Jesus that appears in all 4 Gospels. In Genesis, we find a very nervous Jacob. He is returning to meet his long-estranged brother Esau, the one he tricked and swindled. He does not know if Esau is still mad. He lost Esau's phone number many years ago. They have been out of touch for a very long time, and both of them are in middle age now. They're twins. You recall that Esau is just an easygoing, simple, down-to-earth, outdoorsy, trusting soul. Of the 2, I like Esau better, quite frankly. Jacob, he's a quiet man. He's a schemer. It says that he prefers to live his life indoors, in tents. He tricks his brother out of the blessing and the inheritance that was destined for his brother and not for him. And then he runs away. And he hasn't seen his brother since he did that. And now it's time for a reunion with the brother that he wronged. But as he gets ready for that reunion, nervously, not knowing if Esau still wants to kill him, because Esau did want to kill him at one point, he waits on the banks of the river Jabbok, and in a night vision or a dream or who knows what it was, he wrestles with his ghosts until morning, or maybe with his angels, or maybe with his demons, or maybe with God. But was it a vision? Because when he wakes up, his hip is out of joint. And he goes limping to meet his brother, and he goes limping to meet the rest of his life, and he limps for the rest of his days. Little does Jacob know that Esau will rush to meet him with a big bear hug. He's so happy to see his brother again after all these years, because Esau is a simple, kind-hearted person. Think about all the fitful nights we spend worrying that other people are as mean-spirited as we are. It causes us a lot of needless woe sometimes. But after that long and hard night, that dark night of anguish, he walks with a limp ever after. Jacob was taken by God, set aside. Jacob was blessed with that dream at Bethel where he saw the angels coming and going from heaven. He was broken on the banks of the river Jabbok, fighting with an angel or a demon or himself or with God. And now he is given to be a blessing for the life of the world. Taken, blessed, broken, given. My, how you've grown, Jacob. Trickster, shyster, selfish, greedy, schemer. How you've changed and become at last a man of character. But he did end up paying for his crimes, didn't he? And that experience of pain has transformed him. And somehow, it has given him a strange blessing, a blessing that he is called to share with the world. And now, like all of the best prophets and patriarchs and matriarchs and inspirers of humankind, like all of those who have made this world lovely with their song, Jacob too will walk through life with a limp, broken, partly healed. He had to be broken before he could be made right. And this is why resurrection is our story and our theme. New life only comes after brokenness and pain. In our New Testament reading in the book of Matthew, we see the only miracle of Christ, as I told you, that appears in all four Gospels. Even John is on board with this one. Even John will admit to it. And it too speaks of being broken. What does Jesus do with the 5 loaves and the 2 pieces of fish, the 2 fish in the wilderness? He does the same thing that he's going to do in the book of 1 Corinthians, where Paul is writing about that first communion. He does the same thing he's going to do later in the same book of Matthew in the upper room, and the same thing that he does in Mark and in Luke. Different writers, the exact same words, in the exact same order. Takes, blesses, breaks, gives. What do you think that means? What is the significance that we, like bread, are meant to be taken, blessed, broken, and given for the life of the world? Now, as we talked about last week at great length, I am not saying that God causes our brokenness. I'm only saying that God touches our brokenness and blesses it and makes of it something good and makes of it wholeness for others. I'm not saying that God causes the wound that left you limping through life, but that God can use it to bring about something wonderful and a strange blessing. That's what God does. Consider the possibility that the place where you are broken, that distinctive limp of yours, just might lead you to what you are being called to do in this hour of your life. Consider the possibility that the place where you are broken is the place where you are being called to serve somewhere in the life of this world. In these times, I think all of us are feeling nervous, we're feeling anxious, we're feeling like we have to do something. This is crazy. I've got to do something more than I'm doing. I'm not doing enough. But we don't know where to start. We don't know how. There's a sense of hopelessness, of stuckness, even paralysis, when it comes to feeling so small in the face of so much need in our world. How about this? Let your woundedness guide you. Let your limp show you where to walk, where to go. For example, if you have known what it is to be hungry, which few of us really have, we've been peckish. Few of us have ever been really hungry. If you have ever known what it is to be hungry, maybe you are called to meet that need in the life of the world. Maybe you're calling right now. Maybe not your overarching calling in all of life, but maybe your calling in this time when we're all feeling the need to act is to help to meet physical hunger, the need of physical hunger. If you have wrestled with the demon of addiction, then maybe your calling is to throw yourself into works of recovery. If you have known what it is to stand alone when there should have been somebody at your side, maybe your calling in this hour is to go and stand with somebody who is standing alone, or maybe more than one somebody. If you have been harmed by a miserly heart, maybe your highest calling is to be generous. Generous of pocket and generous of spirit. Generous in attitudes. Generous. Maybe physical illness has left its mark on your body or on your mind, on your spirit. What are the works of healing that might be your calling for this day? Show God your wounds, and God just might show you your calling for this hour. And if you think you're too old to start anything new, you could always give of your resources to those who address that specific woundedness, that specific need that you have faced and known in your life. Think about this. Pray about this. Where could your brokenness benefit the world around you? Is your hurt calling you to some special form of service? Jacob, when he was young, like many of us, he was arrogant, he was selfish, he was tricky. But in middle age, he has to face all those demons. He has to come to terms with them. He has to look at the person he was and the things he did. And it's a dark night, but he comes away from it blessed and wounded. And his woundedness is a kind of blessing to the world. In middle age, he's made to wrestle with his own stuff. His demons, his angels, his God, all of the above. And he walks away from that fearful encounter forever changed, strangely blessed, but also broken. He'll walk with a limp for the rest of his days, because broken and mended somehow, I don't know how, is better than never broken. That's hard to believe. Broken and mended is better than never broken. Jesus himself was taken from his simple life as a carpenter in Nazareth. He was blessed in the waters of the river Jordan. He was broken on the cross of the world suffering. And then he was given, like bread for hungry hearts, taken, blessed, broken, given. Now let us limp out of here today and live as bread for a hungry world. Amen.